I'm not sure Liverpool fans are going to be able to take another 9 months of this. A brilliant, terrible, awful, great 4-2 win over Bournemouth here at Anfield this evening. And I think it's important really to focus on the headline aspects really, which is that, you know, it's important to start well, isn't it? When you're defending your Premier League title, it's important also to win your home games, and I think this was a particularly important one for Liverpool on the basis that obviously next up is Newcastle away, an incredibly tough game, and then also of course Arsenal coming here to Anfield, so it's really, really tricky. And so Bournemouth are a very good side, yes, but they're maybe slightly less of a threat than those two teams, and therefore to not get 3 points on board in this first, you know, conceivably easier fixture, I think would have been a little bit of a disaster for them. So very, very important to get over the line in this one, no matter how. And I thought they showed great spirit really in doing so today. That's what champions do, isn't it? At the end of the day, if you find yourself in a tricky situation in a match, in this case that you've thrown away a 2-goal lead, then you've got to kind of find a way of digging yourself out of it, and they absolutely did that. And it helps, of course, that they had this raucous Anfield crowd behind them. I mean, how many times last year was this crowd so important to turning 1 or maybe 0 points into 3? And I feel like they did it again here in roaring this team onto victory that in the end looked comfortable in the scoreline with it ending 4-2, but obviously certainly wasn't. And I saw Arne Slot on the touchline when the third Liverpool goal went in. He looked absolutely over the moon with that. But I do suppose, you know, once things have died down a little bit, he might have kind of some mixed feelings about this game, because the performance wasn't quite perfect, and managers and coaches tend to look at performance over the end result, don't they? But like I say, for all those reasons, I think he'll be really, really happy with the fact that they did come out with the 3 points in the end, because I think it's something to build on. It gives you that first momentum into the season, and for all those reasons I listed, that winning this particular one was very important to Liverpool. I think he'll be just glad that they got the 3 points and the confidence that they'll get from that on board. And he may also feel, actually, by the way, I don't want to talk about referees this season, but that maybe Bournemouth should have been down to 10 men earlier on, and that might have made things slightly easier. But like I say, don't want to talk about the officials too much. And before really I kind of get into the major talking points of the match, I have to acknowledge the allegation of racial abuse that was made by Antoine Semenyo. And I have to say, you know, when you wasn't it initially clear what exactly had gone on here when we were up in the press box, we don't hear the TV commentary, and I'm pretty sure it was reported quite quickly through there what had gone on and why the players were being pulled to the side. And you know, when you realise what's going on, it just makes you feel sick, to be honest. And you know, if proven, you want to know that the authorities and Liverpool Football Club together will absolutely throw the book at the individual that's involved. But of course we have to wait to see what happens. As I say, at the moment it's just an allegation. You don't want to talk too much about it, but you know, you have to say solidarity with Antoine Semenyo, because that sort of thing should absolutely not be happening in this day and age. And you know, want to focus more, of course, on a brilliant game that we witnessed, and Antoine Semenyo absolutely played his part in that with 2 goals and an excellent performance. He really is a very good player, isn't he? And you know, he was the dominant Bournemouth player in this performance, really, which you know, and they played very well throughout the game, which kind of brings you to one of the major talking points of Liverpool for me, really, which was the fact that Bournemouth were able to play so well in certain aspects, and that for Liverpool the balance just never quite looked right. Now you look at the statistics from the game, and 19 shots to 10 in Liverpool's favour, 10 shots on target to 3 in Liverpool's favour, 2.1. But then when you move on to expected goals and big chances, I think it really tells a story. So it's 3 big chances each, despite Liverpool massively outshooting Bournemouth, which shows you that when Bournemouth were getting their opportunities, they were big ones, and they were big ones on the break. And again, the XG kind of tells that story. 2.15 for Liverpool and 1.63 for Bournemouth. It just looked, even when they weren't fashioning huge opportunities, that Bournemouth were kind of pulling Liverpool apart at will at times, and just looked so easy for them to get out and launch a counter-attack. And that is a big problem. That is how big sides who are not quite ready to win the title, I looked at Arsenal last season, they were bad for that, City last season, that's how they get picked off, is on the counter-attack. Because to be a truly great side, you've got to be, yes, very good in the attacking elements, but you've got to be unbelievable at pinning sides in, and Liverpool were very, very good at that last season, but they haven't quite shown it, have they, from pre-season, this pre-season period, and of course into the start of this season, you'd have to say. And you know, it is a little bit of a worry for them, because it is, that's a prolonged evidence that that's something they may be going to struggle with. And as I say, it kind of, maybe shows you that the balance isn't right with all the changes that Liverpool made. Now, turnover is definitely an aspect in that. They've obviously made several signings this summer, and they're going to have to bed in. It's changes in the back four, changes in midfield, all these elements, changes even up front with your pressing and those aspects. That is going to kind of unsettle you at times. But as I say, Arne Slot, this is going to be his team. This looked like, quite close to his strongest team tonight, and he is going to have to quickly, possibly on the fly, iron out those issues as soon as possible, because I just think, it's inconceivable to me that you see what happens around the second goal, where Salah loses the ball just behind me there in the Kop end box, as he's got every right to do. He's Liverpool's main attacking threat. He's got to try things in the box. But when he loses the ball there, how is it that Bournemouth all of a sudden have a 4 or 5 on 2 that ends in Semenyo popping the ball in the goal? That can't be allowed to happen. And as I say, I think that'll be one aspect of the game and aspect of pre-season as a whole that Slot will be maybe worried about. It's something he'll want to sort, really. They have to get that balance right. Now, I do suspect that Gravenberch might help in that regard. He's more defensively minded than any of them. I mean, Szoboszlai was the deepest midfielder there, and he's the one going to run onto the ball to try and maybe get a shot away and misses it. McAllister's in the box, so it's a chaotic setup. Maybe Gravenberch has the sense to hold his position a little deeper, but regardless, I don't think he's going to want to completely rely on the fact that one player is going to come in and be a silver bullet here. He'll want to get that absolutely right, that organisation, because it hasn't been right. You worry about Wirtz maybe sending the midfield balance off a little bit because he's attack-minded. The fact that the two full-backs are now completely attack-minded, and you don't have, for example, Trent Alexander-Arnold, who, although an attacking right-back and he got criticised for his defending, he did used to hold a deep position because of his quality from crosses from deep positions, but naturally that gave you then a little bit more protection against counters. So, all issues for the manager to work out, and you don't want to go too hard on them because it is really early days, but it is something I'm sure he will be working in over the week. He'll be analysing, he'll be pulling clips from, and absolutely talking to the players about. And I did touch on there the imbalance of fullback, maybe the fact that they're not quite used to playing in this team and keeping things balanced and stopping counter-attacks in the Liverpool way of doing things. And I do think you looked at Kerkez today, and I think he had I don't want to be too harsh on him, but I think he had a really tricky performance, really. I thought immediately you saw that Bournemouth, who will know all about his weaknesses and his strengths, of course, seemed to be targeting straight from the off. Now, big diags being hit towards Antoine Semenyo, and I thought Kirk has actually dealt with that quite well aerially, despite the fact he's not absolutely massive. He wins 2 out of 6 aerial duels, but he gets up there and he tries his best, and he disturbs Semenyo. He doesn't give away many easy wins there, but a few situations where he's getting played around and runners coming off his back and he just doesn't know where they are. And Bournemouth have clearly know that that's something he maybe struggled with in training, and they've targeted him with that, and you have to say it worked. And I thought he got a bit kind of panicky, but he was just making some bad decisions, diving in, which he is prone to do from time to time. And the yellow card he got kind of summed it up, really, just a desperate challenge late. And I think it was the right decision by the manager to take him off when he did and go with the experience of Robertson. And I've kind of been surprised with Kirk as the speed with which he's been put straight into the first team. He's only young, he's getting used to a new club, a new setup. Would it not make sense to use Robertson for a while? I'll be interested to see how that one plays out, really, because I think you saw with Kerkez great strengths, and he's going to be a great player for Liverpool. He's still a kid, basically, and I'm sure even this season we'll see a lot of good from him. But there are also weaknesses there to iron out, and we did see them in this game, and I'm sure we will in the early part of the season. But like I say, don't want to focus on that negative too much, or the negatives as a whole, really, because like I say, the headline is that Liverpool won, and there were so many positives amongst what we saw today, as I now start to shout, because of course the lone mowers have come out, that battle has resumed again. So on the positives, I think I want to speak about Hugo Ekitike, and I have to say, as a starting point with him, he's almost better than I thought. I mean, I spoke to people who watched him in Germany, or you talk about him when he was on the striker market, maybe there's a rawness there. I'm not seeing a lot of rawness in his game when he's coming to Liverpool. He's just taken to it like a duck to water, really, and I thought he was absolutely fantastic. Obviously a goal, an assist, 4 shots, 2 chances created. Love the way he used his physicality. He's so quick, he's so strong, he doesn't look like he's going to struggle in the Premier League at all. And I love the goal, the determination involved, and then he battles his way through, he bumbles his way through, just desperation to win the ball in that situation, and then just pure composure to sit the goalkeeper down, send him kind of to fall into the wrong side and just pass it into the net. Absolutely fantastic. I think he's just some player, isn't he, Hugo Ekitike? Really, really excited to see more of him this season. Looked a very, very good signing. In terms of other positives to Liverpool as well, I really want to mention the performance of Federico Chiesa. Obviously not on the pitch for very long, but I think he just showed he's a very good footballer, isn't he? He didn't get his opportunities last season, but this guy is capable, and what, absolutely loved how much he loved his goal, and the enthusiasm in the celebration down at the side of the corner of the Kop there, just fantastic, and the crowd went off. Already such a great atmosphere for the first game of the season. You would have thought Liverpool had just won a major Champions League tie with a late goal. It was, it absolutely went off, and then the crowd gets going with the Chiesa song, which is fantastic. It was just an absolutely fantastic moment. And it's weird with Chiesa because I'm still not sure that's going to save him. It would not be a shock at all if he were to leave the club before the end of the transfer window, which obviously we're just kind of 2 weeks left of that now. He's, like I say, he's just a really good player, and I think it's a shame it hasn't worked out. As I say, if he does go, he'll go with everyone's best wishes, because he's really loved here. I know he's loved behind the scenes as well. People like him, but there's still that interest from Italy, and it still doesn't look like a lot of game time there. And what I would say is an interesting one there is his use, and the fact he actually comes onto the pitch maybe says something about how Slot sees his options actually coming off the bench and his options in attack in general, because look, he needs a forward to come on there. He's barely used Chiesa in pre-season, but he clearly doesn't want to throw Hengamoa in and say, you're 16 years old, go and win as a Premier League game. Now, if he is thinking like that, if you used Hengamoa all the way through pre-season, you've trusted him, and then it comes to a moment like that and you're a little scared to use him, which I think is possibly a wise decision because it does put too much pressure on him. But if that's the way that you think about Hengamoa, then you maybe have to sign more than just one forward before this window ends, in my opinion, because look, if you're not going to trust him, then you can't consider him a senior option, and therefore Liverpool are a little bit short of what the manager needs. Chiesa very likely is not going to be there. Harvey Elliott is very likely not going to be there, and so yes, maybe Alexander Isak will come in, and I think the signs are positive on that one. But maybe Arne Slot needs another forward as well, because you're not going to have Chiesa in all likelihood. You're not going to be able to trust Hengamoa or not feel like you want to put incredible amounts of pressure on him by bringing him into those scenarios. So if that is the case, Liverpool have to go out and sign two forwards. That is my take on things. Whether they will or not, we don't know. It's a little bit quiet on that front outside of Isak, but never rule out a late surprise in the window, because this recruitment staff describes themselves as opportunistic, and so if they see an opportunity to do that, I think what we saw today in the substitutions and the decisions made maybe suggest that they would jump at that opportunity. But I want to wrap up on a big positive really, which is that, look, first game of the season, you are never going to play perfect, are you? You're never going to be right, especially against a very good Bournemouth side who, they're so good on the counter. They do the exact thing that you don't want when you're not quite in rhythm, which is be physical, hit you with speed and pace and quality, which they've got all over the pitch, and they did that very well today. And all you have to do in response to that is win the game, and Liverpool absolutely did that. And I think it's testament not just to the football quality and the character in terms of them as footballers to come back from difficult situations, but also I don't think we are talking enough about how hard it is on these players, what they have been through in the summer through losing Diogo Jota. I just think, this game, even again, it's another reminder of everything that's gone on, because you have the moments silence, you have the placards and mosaic being lifted in the two corners of the ground there, incredibly emotional moments, and then an unbelievably poignant version of You'll Never Walk Alone, and they are dealing with the loss of their friend here. It's not just a kind of footballer to them, it's one of their best mates who has gone, and every moment and every time they play football, it's a reminder of the loss of him. And even the singing of his name and his song in the 20th minute, as much as that's a fantastic celebration and a tribute to Diogo Jota, it must absolutely break these players' hearts. Not that they would want it to stop, but that it would be really, really difficult for them. And I watched Mo Salah at the end there in tears, applauding the Kop as they sing that song, and that really hit home to me, really. And like I say, I think we undersell the human element of this and how much this is impacting them as individuals. And so maybe if they do have a bit of a sticky start to the season, if they may struggle in the next couple of games, they struggle further than that into the season, and it may not be perfect, it may not be like last season where they run away with things. Maybe we've got to start thinking about that human aspect, because that was writ large really on Mo Salah's face today, how much this whole situation is hurting. And I'm sure there's other players who have maybe not shown it as openly, but it was hurting just as much with the loss of their friend. So, you know, maybe we should cut them a little bit of slack if things aren't perfect, because, you know, why would they be? I'm not sure we would be perfect at work if we just suffered a loss like that. So I think that is something to think about. But as I say, you know, let's focus on the positives from tonight, which is a big win for Liverpool, a great start to the Premier League title defence. Football's back. It's back in a dramatic way, an enjoyable way. And I think if, you know, anyone is still feeling down about the Jota situation, as they would be, as is normal, not just the players, the staff, but also supporters as well, maybe focus on the positives of the football, and that is something to grasp onto, because that is the reason we all love Diogo Jota. We got to see the brilliance of his personalities because of football and how great that is. So this is something for us all to hold on to and enjoy really, and yeah, today was certainly enjoyable from a Liverpool perspective. So I'm going to wrap it up there anyway. Please do let me know your thoughts on the comments. We are back now, aren't we? It's going to be press conference match. Really, really looking forward to this season. I thought it was a perfect start to it as well. So as I say, do leave your comments, your thoughts on all that, the big talking points, who you thought played well, and everything else who you thought didn't play too well. And like and subscribe if you can as well. And I'll see you guys very soon.